students, how are you? Today our topic is dedicated to the problem, the age factor in second language learning especially. You know that different scholars have different ideas of giving the class for the young learners, adults and adolescents. They say that there is a great difference between them. Some scholars prefer that, starting giving the class for the adults and adolescents is more effective than to start giving the class for the young learners. But, for example, as for the scholar Hutchinson, present the idea that learners uh, have got some deficiency in phonology and grammar. You see, and early and late L2 learners are presented differently in the brain. It means that their brains work differently. And the third one is older learners will make use of their first language learning strategies to learn the grammar and achieve good performance than young learners. It's another scholar, but other scholars, as John told that there is another version that the young learners is better to give to give the better results when we give the classes for the young learners. But you see, there are three there are three special factors of acquisition, such as the first one is cognitive, the second one is psychological, and the third one is social factors. It means that they are individual capacity, language aptitude, second language instruction, then teaching method, teaching materials are very important, then self-conscious personality, aptitude, and motivation. You know that motivation is also important for giving the class. There are two types of motivation, such as, look at this picture, please. It will be intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic motivation is a motivation which presents individual himself. He tried to deal with all the authentic materials which are necessary to solve the problem. And extrinsic motivation is a motivation of outside, for example, which will be given by the teacher and his group mates. You see, but the main process in motivation, especially the teacher should pay attention to the needs, to the interests of the students, and they should expect some new. You see, if we deal with the process of young learners and adults and adolescents, they are so different from each other. For example, but to all of them, we should bring some new, which are necessary to give during the class. You see, different scholars have different ideas about it. But nowadays, it was before, which belongs to the 1919. There are two scholars who presented the idea, Singleton and Rain, presented some ideas when we started giving the classes for the young learners from their fifth grade. But later on, the time changes, and then it was adopted the new curriculum to the school system as to give the classes from their third grade. But again, according to the new policy of Uzbekistan, in 2012, it was declared the new decree about conducting the class for the first grade student. And it gave a positive result, an effective result in teaching process. You see, but many scholars argue that the young learners perceives acquire the new language acquisition is better than the adults and adolescents. But you see again, there are three versions of this matter, and different schools have different ideas about it. But in nowadays, we have come to the conclusion that to give the class, it will be more effective to give the classes from their young age. For example, in nowadays, they started to teach the kindergarten students at the age of 3 to foreign language. It also gives an effective result in acquisition process of foreign language. You see, we shouldn't forget about different kind of strategies and, for example, management and organization which are necessary to use in the class. Management is the process of actions and strategies of using by the teacher in the classroom, but we don't think that management also depends on, for example, to observe behavior of students. No. At the same time, the students should know about the strategy which present by the teachers, and the teacher should deal with the needs and the interests of the students. And especially to use different kind of techniques and technology are very important in giving the class for different ages. For example, it doesn't matter will it be beginners, will it be adults or adolescents. Mm, so, for example, we shouldn't forget about physical total response, which are necessary at the beginning of the class. For example, especially which belong for elementary school children, when we'll start giving the class uh, from physical total responses. Then games, we shouldn't forget about the games which are necessary to use. And especially the teacher should pay attention to the management, especially to his, for example, manners, to his body language, gestures, mimes, postures. All of them are very important for the teacher in order to manage the classroom. Organization is also important in the class. For example, to give the classes. Why do we deal with organization? Especially when the students enter the classroom, first of all, they try to position the atmosphere of the classroom. The walls of the classroom shouldn't be decorated with different kind of colorful pictures which attract the attention of students during the class. No, it was necessary to hang some necessary, for example, tables which are necessary for the student, which deal with the needs of the students. And at the same time, the teacher should can move without any problem among the rows of the tables in the classroom. Techniques and technology are very important also to give the classes for both groups. For example, for beginners, at the same time for the adults and adolescents. Mm, so. Uh, why do we, for example, not always we should plan the classes not only in the to conduct the class in inside of the class, but sometimes we should conduct the classes outside of the class in order to acquaint the student with the nature of his land he lives. It's very important. It will inspire, it will motivate the student to love, for example, the language which he be learned by him. Especially again, if we deal with the process of beginners, adults, and adolescents, they are so different from each other, but all the scholars came to the conclusion that it's necessary to give the classes from their very early age. So I want to say one thing, that it's necessary you're acquainted, you know all the topics which I gave you beforehand, and exactly you should be ready. It will be a home assignment to be ready for all requirements which were given in the textbook, and individually you will respond to all the requirements which are given in this textbook. Thank you. Goodbye.